Okay, we are live, and this is the Second Opinion, and I am not the host of tonight's Cafe Cast because I felt like taking a lazy day and turned it over to Unova Brony here. So, for those of you wondering just what the heck I've done, you're stuck with them now. So, all right, here is your host tonight, Unova Brony.
Greetings, ladies and foes, gentle Colton, what else? Welcome to the Riff Cafe podcast tonight. And we are here with our lovely guests, starting with one of our own cafe regulars over here in this podcast, Past Analysis.
Hello, I'm Past Analysis. Now, I'm not going to be talking about my view of this episode first, but I will give you fair warning that it's been like a long line of favorites for me this season. Tonight I'm going to be getting negative again because this episode did not do it for me.
Then we move down the conga line down to a semi-casual visitor to our podcast, presenting OmniViewer.
Greetings, everyone. I am the original man from Nantucket. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure to speak to you once more. But now we have a new guest here. For their first Cafe Cast introduction, we have ourselves Pixel Cheesecake.
All right, I did not take a wrong turn at Albuquerque. I'm glad to be here. I'll be very positive to counteract any negativity because I loved this episode. Absolutely loved it.
Ooh, this is going to be quite interesting. Let's see which side will win here today in the Cafe Cast. Negativity or positivity? It's anyone's guess here. But now, let's go down from possibly a person who has the most neutral opinion. OmniViewer, I'd like you to start with your discussion.
Okay. Well, let's see. Like you said, it's fairly well neutral for me. I think it's kind of one of those episodes, Honest Apple, where it was not necessarily a great episode, but I certainly do get what it was doing. Because it was kind of, well, let's see, organizing my thoughts. I've witnessed this sort of stuff, like exactly this sort of thing happen in real life. Heck, I witnessed it in the comments section of a review about the episode. So it's, I can't necessarily say that it's not realistic. Kind of similar to the last episode I did a podcast thing on, which was Fluttershy Leans In. I've experienced it myself.
Yeah, I can definitely say from my perspective, very, very like non too positive and non too negative on it. Like
We'll be ending with a neutral one as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like I don't dislike the episode, but I can severely say that a certain episode from season 6 is better than this episode. And
many episodes are better than this episode.
no, when I say a certain season 6 episode, I mean the worst Applejack episode of season 6 is better than this episode.
What was the worst Applejack episode of season 6? I don't.
Stay off, Applejack. Stay off.
Yes.
Oh yes. Well, I must say, but you're saying that episode was better.
Yeah, I definitely actually like the pacing of Applejack Stay Off a lot more.
You have rarely hit the one episode mark that will make me defend this episode tonight. This episode is better than that episode. Not even, no. That episode was garbage, and you just so happened to hit one that I really didn't like. So I congratulate you.
Oh, at least we're gonna get a lot of fun arguments tonight.
Oh yes.
Well, since Omni, are you done with like your thoughts for the moment?
I'm done for now, sure. I mean, I know that these things can last for a very long time, so I can wait. I
Alrighty
don't want
then.
to steal people's thunder.
I gotcha. So, let's try the newcomer, Pixel. Your thoughts?
Everyone basically said what I was going to say. It was similar enough to Fluttershy leans in, but Applejack was in the place of Fluttershy for the episode. But it had a lot of thrown in extra stuff that I think actually worked. Like Verity, the prim and proper one, could really riff on the freaking guitar.
I was
It gave me
kind
the best idea for a music album,
Hmm.
like the cover of a music album. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I thought like that pause was like maybe a way for me to like get your head bubbling with ideas. Like what do you mean by like Applejack being the same place as Fluttershy from Leans In?
The setup and pacing are similar enough to the point, but it took that one background pony in Honest Apple to make Applejack realize, oh no, I messed up.
Yeah, Strawberry Sunrise, definitely a nice new character to add to the background characters here for the Ponyville. Would definitely say like she's certainly a delight when you don't discuss Apple byproducts. She probably even hates the technology Apple.
Do they even
Yeah.
have that in Equestria?
Probably not.
Probably not, but she'll probably dislike it if she even caught wind of it.
They have sewing machines, so I assume they have computers.
And again, sewing machines was made like around 200 years before the
Sewing
development.
machines and computers are kind of cut from very different technological bases, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Also, has anyone seen the comics recently?
No, I have not.
No.
Background details indicate Transformers, which I would assume that technology exists as well. So the Rainbow Dash versus Starscream could have some canon to it.
Starscream versus Rainbow Dash.
Wait, are you talking about the death battle?
Yeah, that's the death battle. Huh. I have no idea how to respond to that.
Me neither. Yeah, well.
Pegasus eats a Transformer. That would be excellent. No, that's how you kill something with that off screen without actually raising the rating. So yeah.
Alrighty then.
Cool.
Well, I believe we should move on over to our casual sorry, to our regular here. Past analysis. Give us the down low on Honest Apple. And
Okay, well,
opinion.
I gotta say I feel a little bad because maybe I over prepared for this, but honestly, I'd say that this episode was like there were many points where I'd say it could have gone in a good direction, but ultimately it didn't, and as a result, it's a pretty miserable episode. First off, the worst thing about this episode has to be its moral. Its moral is a terrible moral that is honestly completely backwards. No. You should not. People who criticize something should not think so much so about the process for how to create it that it leaves them completely scared as to how they're supposed to even talk about it. near the end, we saw the culmination, the result of this lesson for AJ. She saw a dress that, in her opinion, was terrible, and she was too nervous to say anything. Because that's the moral of this episode, is that you should be a little sensitive, dishonest person. You shouldn't try to be honest. You should really just try to worry about other people's sensitivity. And the opposite of this moral, which I think is the better moral, is that why should the designer ponies, why should anyone in that position care what someone like AJ has to say? AJ is someone who, in this very episode, said that fashion is stupid. I believe that's not a direct, I'm paraphrasing, but she did call fashion stupid.
Said ridiculous.
Wait, what did she say?
Ridiculous.
He said ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Okay, she said fashion is ridiculous. That's not I wouldn't take that person's word. I wouldn't take that person's word at all on the topic of fashion. And if I was one of those designers, I would. Maybe I'd storm out, but I would definitely ask, why is that person a judge? She knows nothing about fashion, and she thinks the whole premise of fashion is ridiculous. She's the worst person to have in there. And unlike Rarity, Hoity-Toity, or what's her face?
Photo Finish.
Photo Finish. Unlike all three of those, Applejack has no career knowledge about what sells, what doesn't sell. That's what you need when you have a fashion designer. You need someone to know what's going to sell and what's not. And AJ doesn't know anything about fashion.
Mind if I say something on the flip side
What's
about
the flip
that?
side?
Well, there was this fashion thing that certain special interest groups were raving about.
Uh-huh.
It's this new fashion trend called glitter boys. It's
Okay.
the real life equivalent of forcing men to wear drag. And
Okay.
there were people in an uproar about it.
Okay.
The people like that were it's not practical, no one would want that. And I think that was kind of Applejack's opinion on the dresses, because she's not
See,
one for it. I mean, she does respect Rarity's hobbies and actually helped set back up the entire stage and everything after it was half torn down.
the purpose of a judge and the purpose of designer shows like this, or judges of any medium, whether it be a cooking show or anything like that, is to prepare people for the real world in what will people who actually, buy this stuff, what are they going to want? What are they going to want? Now, you can totally say that there are people out there who think that the whole, product is pointless and stupid, but you never make, designers don't.
People like. So you mean people like Simon Cowell? Probably never sung a note in his life, but actually brought about the birth of.
No. I'm not talking about. I'm not saying they have to have the skill. I'm saying they have to know the skill and have to be able to, have to have some basis of expertise on how to determine who is going to have something that people want. It's knowing the audience that makes them judges. It's knowing what sells, what doesn't sell. That's what makes them a qualified judge. And AJ has none of that.
Well,
He
if
was
I
the
may,
physical embodiment of the court of public opinion in this episode, which wasn't too bad, but
i-
her
if I
mind got
may,
changed easily.
Yeah.
if I may, in terms of like the question you brought up of why is this person a judge when they clearly
Yeah.
shouldn't be? Like
Yeah.
I said, I've seen it in real life. There are certain people, especially on the internet, who, when you listen to them talking about a particular subject, it becomes very clear they shouldn't be, and yet so many people are listening. Certain
Okay.
people, but like
Now-
certain people, like for video games, who the very mention of one particular person would probably start a flame war in its own right, and I don't want to do that.
However, no, that's a great point, Omni, and I already have a nice rebuttal to that.
Go ahead.
AJ being a judge in the episode isn't bad. The episode not pointing out that it is bad is bad. If they had ultimately near the end of the episode pointed out that, hey, look, AJ isn't qualified to be a judge, and none of these designer ponies should take her word with any grain, like they should not take it with anything but a humongous grain of salt. That would be the moral, because and a moral that I think actually is quite needed for creators of anything. Know your audience and know who isn't part of it. Know when there's just some person that like has absolutely no care of the subject whatsoever, making a judgment statement on it. Like, I'm big into World of Warcraft. I love World of Warcraft. Why should the people who make that game care what people who don't play it and don't care for MMORPGs, like they are not the audience from every conceivable perspective. They are not the target audience, and they don't know anything about what the target audience wants. You should not be speaking on it. This actually happened with the Warcraft movie, where you had critics of the movie making guest statements as to what they thought people who actually are into the series would think, and they were completely off because they had no idea what they were talking about. When you have a judge, when you have a critic, that person better be qualified.
But
And-
to be
Well,
fair about the Warcraft movie,
Uh-huh.
they had the game engine right there. They could have done all the cutscenes, the cutscene engine to make the entire movie instead, and make it look actually good instead of turning it into live action.
I mean, if you're but see, here's the thing here, and this is actually a great point that I'm glad you kind of brought up. That's something that Hollywood, stuck up folks talked about, and your average everyday person who actually knows about the world, like, we don't care. Ultimately, you're talking about someone who may be in like a prop expert type, like, if you're talking about an audience that is super nitty gritty about detail like that, maybe that would matter. But the overall, rating, and this is a rating that is like, I've seen it on multiple places. This is the rating that most WoW movie, myself included, is an 8 out of 10. Just because, like, if you are a judge, if you are a critic, you need to learn the audience that is going to consume it, not your own perspective of it. And that's the thing that AJ doesn't have here. She is making an assessment of these outfits with no expertise as to her actual opinion means a damn. Why should
That's
her
what Rarity brought Applejack in to do.
what
her
Rarity brought
actual
Applejack
opinion,
in to
so.
do may have at first seemed like a good idea because of what they did with the whole AJ fixing Apple Bloom's attire, but it quickly turned out that Rarity was completely wrong. Because AJ was taking, like, she dismantled an entire dress outfit into a poncho. She, like, there was, maybe she could have been a good judge. Maybe. Turns out she was a terrible judge. And turns out that someone like Rarity, if I was Rarity, I'd try kicking out AJ pretty soon into the process because she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's got no expertise. None. Just like that strawberry background pony had no expertise of apples. If you had like an apple off contest, she'd be the last person you'd want to judge it. Because she knows nothing about apples. And she specifically doesn't care about apples. So why bring in to a judging arena someone who doesn't care about the thing that is being judged? Just like saying that, oh, well, I'm going to bring in like a food person, someone who likes to eat food, but ultimately they don't care for cooking or something like that. AJ doesn't care about designing. She doesn't care about fashion, any of that.
Well, again, like real world equivalent would be, have you ever read the like an issue of the New Yorker or something where the movie review is about the latest comic book based superhero movie?
Uh-huh.
I mean, granted, I haven't read any recently, but the ones I did read hated them purely on the principle that they were superhero comic book movies. And clearly, like, clearly it was that sort of stuck-up kind of comic books cannot be art kind of mindset that made me think exactly what you're describing. And yet...
Okay, no, but see, isn't the show supposed to, when it makes a moral, it's supposed to be a moral, like, something that people actually want to live by, not something that is going to make the world, more of a shitty place?
Applejack wasn't meant to be the moral. She was supposed to be the example of that Wall Street journalist who says.
And yet she was kept on as a judge, and yet the episode decided to paint it as though, oh, well, you just need to understand that it's a very complicated process. And near the end of the episode, when she did have an honest opinion of the dress, she was too afraid to say anything because she might offend Rarity.
Honestly, pass. To continue on with your point there, it kind of feel like the way that they brought that point out near the very end of the episode, it was supposed to be for a joke, but the way that they played it was more damaging to the fact of how honest she was speaking about her thoughts before, but now she was like feeling like she needed to restrict a part of herself, and that's not really like a good idea to bring up the kids because, well, let's just say like if you need to tell someone to like stop doing something annoying, like that's kind of like another thing that you need to think about, because
the moral should have been everybody has a right to their opinion, but some opinions in the field of judging and like buying are actually more valuable. There are opinions that are more objectively valuable than just your random opinion from a schmo who's never gonna get any of those. AJ doesn't purchase fashion stuff. She doesn't purchase it. I mean, she doesn't even. If it wasn't for having a friend like Rarity, she wouldn't have a single. She might not have a single nice outfit in her entire attire. Oh, that is a tongue twister.
Her closet, she said she has 20 of the same hat.
Yeah, but she doesn't have any like dresses. She doesn't have any of these like fashionista-esque things that she's judging. She was judging dresses, was she not? And she has like one.
I would also like to say about like for the episode, like it didn't go into detail about why Applejack was being very standoffish. Like after a little bit in the beginning when she was starting to critique the people, it was like slowly but surely she was starting to become like very desensitized to like anyone, and like just basically was not viewing this as like a competition of people who are creating stuff out of nothing, but probably like just like, oh, they made like little like insignificant trinkets. It's fine for me to like touch them, right? It's fine to me to actually fix them because they're just new people, right? Meanwhile, sorry.
Oh, well, all I was gonna say is that I don't know if that's what was going on. I just think that, AJ isn't the type of clientele that's gonna buy any dress. Like any dress that these ponies made, or any dress that any of the judges agreed upon. Like, let's take the end dresses for example. None of those are anything that AJ would actually purchase. Whereas I could probably see Rarity purchasing the one dress she liked. Same for Photo Finish. Same for Hoity Toity. Like, they are actually in the field and part of the clientele. AJ isn't. So it's the opinion of an outsider that means nothing. It's a fly on the wall.
To be fair, season 1 reminded me. Season 1, the Grand Galloping Gala.
Uh-huh.
Remember that dress on Applejack?
Yeah. The ugly one that she wanted, or the one that she ultimately wore?
The one that she ultimately wore.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Basically, she understands that everyone has their own expertise because that's how that society functions.
Well, see, the thing is that episode actually, I think, helps my argument more because it proves a giant, enormous example of AJ not knowing what it takes to make a dress. I mean, back then she thought that galoshes were a decent part of a dress. She was giving opinions very strongly in this episode against whatever the takes were of the three actual judges, the three judges that actually knew what they were talking about. So, and another thing about this episode, which, it's really just a small point, but I found it weird. I found it really weird when AJ, like, she was so offended and so taken aback by the Strawberry Ponies commentary that she wound up, like, tearing up. I found that to be, like, a bit excessive, because this is also AJ, the pony that we've kind of been told is, like...
AJ didn't tear up.
She did tear up. She most certainly teared up.
Her face got red.
No. I'm talking about what happened after. When she was admitting fault, she had tears in her face. Like, big tears in her face.
It's
and this is AJ, the pony that cries on the inside, as season 5 put it. It just seems, I don't know if I'd say it's out of character, but it does seem weird. It seems weird that AJ, feeling she's out of fault here, would take it so emotionally. It just seems odd for AJ's character of all characters.
Well, pass. That insight about AJ. Like
Yeah.
could it be perhaps like it could be like somewhat confused for like sometimes like you might get very high strung in like in your anger and such that sometimes you might tear up because of like it might touch you vulnerably. But
Yeah. It, even so, that also just is like, why did she get? I mean, she got. I just feel like the emotions were a bit extreme there. A bit extreme for AJ. I think they could have toned it down a little bit, and it would have been perfectly fine.
well, I honestly think that there is one thing I would like to bring up about the episode,
Yeah.
and it's AJ's perspective about the fashion from like one bad example made by Coco Permel, but then everything else isn't even a bad example. Like that kind of felt weird. Like if we wanted to say make this episode a bit more relatable on AJ's side, like can you imagine like say one or even two of like the fashionistas were trying to build up something similar to what that one picture of Coco Permel with like the disco ball dress, like, and then you might see like she might get more cocky and more confident, and then when they go transition into like normal looking fashion clothes, and then she gets cocky, like she gets affected, like I need to remove like this part. Like what? Like would you think like you would take this episode better, or would it still result the same anger reaction from you, Pass?
If they sort of gave us, if they put us more in her shoes, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Like,
more in the shoes, and also more of the more ridiculous side of fashion that the ponies seem to applaud over.
I see what you're saying. No, I don't think it would, because see, Equestria has a very odd set of tastes. Um, and clearly, Rarity, Photo Finish, and Hoity Toity are within that weird clientele. So they of all people would definitely understand the what's being made and all that. Let us not remember. Let us not forget that there was an episode where Rarity made an entire host of clothing from hotel attire, hotel stuff. There was soap on one of the dresses, and Ponyville ate it up. Like the fashion elite ate it up. So I don't know what the the clientele would want. I don't have that opinion. And sure, it definitely can be fun as an audience member to just look at it, look at the judges, look at what they're judging, and just kind of say the whole thing is ridiculous because, from someone who's not part of it, it is ridiculous. But I'm saying that the judges themselves should be in on it. They should be in on like the trends, and they should have a good idea as to what is going to sell, things like that. AJ doesn't know any of that, so I would say even with her behavior displayed in the episode as it is, it's relatable. I can most certainly relate to what she's saying because, I'm not much of a fashion person myself, but she knows nothing about that clientele, so she shouldn't be there. She shouldn't be like Rarity should have realized early on, or at least by the end of the episode, please by the end of the episode, that AJ was the wrong pick for a judge. Like a very wrong pick.
It kind of makes me think like in the show we don't like to reject anyone. Like one thing is like, oh, everyone wins in like say one of the Equestria Girls movies, or say if everyone won in the end, or say in season 3, oh, like our city won even though we didn't prepare like like a performance for you, and you just only saw like the reality and just only got secondhand information from some guests who got the treatment you were supposed to get instead. Like I
Yeah.
just feel like in any season, My Little Pony just does not work when it comes to judging.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, no, you're right. Because something like this, AJ is in the wrong. Like, she is blatantly in the wrong. And their bias doesn't really allow for that. I would also like to point out that the Equestria, the MLP FIM writing staff are creators. And so this episode is, it's biased towards the creators' perspective. It's biased towards, don't criticize me because of, don't criticize the work of a creator. It's sensitive to them. Something that creators don't necessarily want to hear is that they shouldn't be sensitive to certain complaints. Tommy Oliver, a long time back, maybe like a year ago, he
Oh,
made a
him.
video on his Red Pixels video on his channel, and he said that one of the things that he as a creator makes the mistake of doing is thinking that every single person who comments is someone who is qualified to speak on the matter, and the truth is that a lot of them aren't. A lot of people who speak on the behalf of your work might just not even be a part of the audience that you're trying to hit. And if they're not a part of the audience you're trying to hit, I mean, you basically should just kind of ignore their opinion from a application point of view, because you shouldn't make any changes to something if they're just a little fly in the wind. Everyone else likes it, so why should you care what the little guy over there who knows nothing about the subject has to say?
Okay, so that brings up a bit of a paradox because no one in this particular podcast is in the audience that the show is trying to hit. So,
Oh no, okay, ooh, very, very good point. I mean, of course, I'm going to fire back, but that is a very good point. My fire back would basically be that we're bronies, and our audience here is probably other bronies. So we are giving a bronies perspective to other bronies. So I mean, yeah, as a whole, we're not the target demographic, but us talking about it to the two bronies, our target demographic, the target demographic of the Rift Cafe is bronies. So a bronies perspective on the episode is merited.
Okay. Oh, I would like to move this conversation to an interesting question I want to bring up to Pixel, if that's all right with you.
Before you do, I just want to clarify what I just said. Omni, do you get what I meant? Like, if our audience was little kids, then yeah, it'd be really ridiculous what we're doing here. But do you get what I meant?
yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird, convoluted way of going about it, but I do understand.
Okay. Well, that's good enough for me.
All right. So Pixel, here's an interesting question. What do you think about when it comes to judges for the episode of Honest Apple? What do you think about their responses and such to AJ before the midpoint of the episode?
Brought up interesting points to the designs while they were being worked on, and to help in what way they can. If Applejack didn't take over and touch the dresses, which I think that the thing would have worked out better. Like, it would have been resolved faster, but
I kind of think the episode's moral, like, I think the intended moral specifically got lost somewhere. Because
I think you know why I loved it? I think it was because of the moral. What I find the moral to be, this is Applejack. Applejack did this. Don't be Applejack.
But you should be Applejack in terms of you should be someone who is honest. The moral was telling, at least what the moral told me, was that it's not necessarily bad that AJ was a judge. She still judged in the end. She still provided, the splitting vote. I really, the moral I take away from it really has to do with that end bit that may have been a joke, but really made more so made it seem like AJ wasn't being honest at the end.
and that's why I'm saying I think the thing the moral got lost a bit, because I don't think it was necessarily meant to be anti-judgment or anti-honesty or anti-criticism. I think it was more meant to be about being anti-destructive criticism. And ultimately, by the end, I'm not sure if that's what it was actually about.
I'm not even sure if that's what it's about. Like, all I can tell you is that AJ just didn't know what she was talking about. She didn't know the clientele that she was judging.
Yeah, but I mean, I look at the episode, and as I'm looking at it, I think, okay, like, AJ's not saying anything to follow up her critiques. Like, when I do a lot of editing for people in the Rift, they ask me to look over their scripts for reviews or fan fictions or whatnot, and like, if it comes to typos or something as I'm going through, I'll just automatically correct those. But when it comes to something like a thought that doesn't make sense or an idea that's not fully expanded upon, I will say this part doesn't make sense or this part is too brief. But then I always follow it up. I say, what if you did this instead? What if you tried going in that direction or some such thing? I look at the episode and AJ doesn't do that. She just says, this doesn't work. And when that's your only feedback, you don't know how to fix it. So the only thing you know how to do is to undo.
She didn't necessarily just do destructive criticism. She did ultimately change one of the dresses and turn it into a poncho, the Inky Rose dress.
Yeah.
She turned it into a poncho and said, there, now it's better.
I think that was actually interesting. I think that was meant. I think they intended the character to be called that, given another analyst / singer in the fandom.
Well,
all I was basically just all I was pointing out was that AJ did in fact show what she thought would have been the better choice, and the end result is that none of the designers liked it, none of the other judges liked it, no one in the fashion clientele would like that, really. So AJ's constructive.
To be fair, Coco Flamel did have a pony and a disco ball. Tiny, sweet Coco Flamel. So,
yeah. I mean, what are you trying to say? That that's ridiculous? I mean, yeah, to us it's ridiculous, but to the fashion clientele, it's not. And they're probably going to gobble that up.
I was talking to someone earlier about fashion.
Uh-huh.
Someone who's trying to get their foot in the door of the fashion industry.
Uh-huh.
Here's her exact words. Fashion is meant to be ridiculous. It's the very thing that keeps fashion running.
Yeah, and AJ was completely against that because she does not consume fashion. Like she doesn't like her whole thing. AJ's whole thing is style. She's style over fashion. She doesn't like fashion. Practicality,
Form
yeah.
over function.
So she has no, like I've been saying. I mean that was an interesting point, Omni. But I think that if you did the AJ equivalent in real life with people's reviews, you would be making suggestions that like would just be bland to their audiences, that their audiences would find ridiculous and terrible, and like, why are you saying that? It would be bad advice is what it would be.
Well, yeah, to follow up on it a bit, that I mean, as you said, there was the whole thing where AJ took the original design, turned it into something completely different, and said now it's better. To follow up, I try not to do that. I will suggest a direction, or I'll suggest several directions, but I won't actually like spell it out for anyone if that's the case.
Okay.
I'll say, what if you tried doing this? Or what if you thought about this particular fact?
But even if AJ did that and she was less hands-on, her advice would still be crap.
Yeah, but it's about working with the person you're editing for or judging for, rather than dictating what their voice should be.
However, there is a difference though between being an editor for someone versus being a judge for someone. The power dynamic is different. An editor, sometimes it depends on the editor. It can be like that of a judge, contestant relationship, but in many cases, the contestant, the person who actually made it, has the authority. That's the case with you. With a judge, a judge making a suggestion is still a judge making a suggestion, and they have more influence because they're judges, because that is their relationship to the creator, is because they're a judge.
Yeah, but the ultimate point, though, would be that a smart judge would not try to I should specify, like, a smart judge in a competition like this would not try to trample on someone's vision per se.
Oh no! Of course they wouldn't. Of course a judge like that wouldn't. I'm just saying that, yeah, it wouldn't be as detrimental if AJ didn't, actually trample, but she would still be detrimental in her completely bonkers perspective on fashion. Like, she would still not be helpful towards making these designers actually be able to sell their stuff. She wouldn't be helpful in that regard.
I just want to interject and make a particular highlight to a certain commenter over here in the live chat here. Pristine has been making a lot of good comments about why she was greatly displeased about this episode, and
we'll go on.
Going over a lot of stuff about like how it kind of really ruins on on fashion, and like how like, it didn't feel like the judges, aka hoity-toity or photo finish, didn't really wasn't providing like objective like a practicality along with their criticism. They were only subjective. But then there was also the fact that she very much derailed on Rarity. Because let's not forget about like Rarity. Like, for her, she feels like this is like her third biggest buck up, like in the entire series, with like her first one being like the Rainbow Falls dresses. Then over at season 6, it was let me see. It was also a lot of other mess ups, and then with this one with like her basically removing like sorry, I'm getting my points mixed up. Like going to like another point in which like Applejack were to like when she was judging, the point in which she actually removed like the feathers off of Inky Rose's hat.
Yeah.
Like that was basically like the breaking point for Pristine there, and like basically made her heart shatter. Was like, nope, this is the worst episode I've ever. This is one of the worst episodes I've ever seen. Like, and you can clearly see it from like how she expresses herself there. That yeah, for someone who's more artistically inclined, who actually has experience with this, it's much more heartbreaking than even like our own perspectives who haven't even touched that field.
Oh yeah, no, I imagine it would probably be, I mean, like it would be heartbreaking for an artist to witness that, and it was also to some degree heartbreaking for the other judges to witness that. For the artist in the episode, like, oh my gosh, what did you just do?
And that's part of why I'm neutral. I'm actually a creator as well as a reviewer, so I automatically see both sides of this.
Same here, but that's why I try and stay positive about it. I mean, I can understand where Applejack was coming from doing the thing that I do, if I can elaborate on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I run a website called the Amazing Artist Directory. It's this free blogspot thing, basically giving people who create for a living free promotion. Not too bad, right? But I just I kind of help them by, even if I can't get commissions from them because they're busy with all their other ones that they've got pouring in.
I mean,
Like by the time I commissioned one of them, they had 3 other commissions that were rush jobs.
gotcha.
Anyway.
Even in that case, though,
I
you're
also
more
have
within
to-
the clientele. You're more within the, like, you're within the audience, and so you're in order to sell best to the audience, you have to know the audience. You have to know what they like, and you have to not scoff at it. And what AJ did in this episode was she scoffed at it because she didn't know about it. She didn't really care about it, even in the end. I'd argue she was just trying to be polite. She didn't really care about, fashion near the end of the episode. So, honestly, she just, and the whole reason that she decided that she would do it is because she was she was she didn't like that her sister was trying to do something fashiony. That's what encouraged her to become a fashion judge. Not the best thing to motivate you.
I just wanted to bring up the correction. It wasn't Inky Rose who had the feather hat. It was Lily Lace, the Fluttershy looking unicorn.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
How could you mess that up? I like literally can't even.
I just kind of feel like after like this discussion, like my opinion's kind of like weighed down more on the negative side now, because I just thought about like this episode, and it's like I'm now starting to relive some of those feelings from Games Ponies Play when I thought about Miss Harshwinnie's judgment at the end. Not really falling in line with like what I consider like what a judge's job is supposed to do. And then to see someone
Games Ponies Play again. Well,
Mrs. Harshwinnie was supposed to be welcomed by the main 6 to be shown.
Oh yeah. Okay, now I'm remembering it.
It's a mistaken identity.
Yeah, and
that one.
I just honestly feel like the with like the moment of like Lily Lace's hat combined with like just like dictatorship of like not even like the majority rule of like judges with like minded couldn't go up against AJ, all for a much more ham-fisted moral than say like the way that Pinkie Pie was acting in Rock Solid Friendship. Yeah, I just it's not really like a pleasurable episode to even watch, and I don't even think it's really that educational, like
No,
or that
it's not.
beneficial to like to much anyone.
I'm I messed up earlier. When I said I wanted to compare it to compared it to Fluttershy Leans In, I'm thinking it's more. I was thinking that it was more along the lines of Ponyville Confidential.
Okay.
Like the CMC were acting the same way as Applejack is, like pointing out the ridiculousness of it. And
But the CMC were outright like making stuff up in
Yeah.
Confidential.
Yeah.
that's what I was about to get into.
Sorry.
Okay.
You see where I'm going with it. You're more articulated than me if you want to take over.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to step on any toes.
I'm used to being interrupted. Don't worry. Anyway.
So what?
The train of thought leaves the tracks.
Dang.
Gotcha.
That's
Someone put a penny
unfortunate.
on it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, Pixel.
Meh.
It's really kind of like a bother that like this was done by a new writer, by the way.
It was
Like-
done by a new writer?
Yeah, by someone by the name of Kevin Lappin.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah. Not surprised.
well, it's his first episode, so not everyone's gonna have that amazing first episode like episode 100. But
Wait, as in like an amazing episode?
Let it go, past. Let it
I'm
go.
not. I'm not touching on it. I just was trying to clarify. But anyway, I mean,
I'm
even if this is his first episode,
saying my
Like,
ability
there have
to
been-
troll.
there have been other, like a lot of other writers. I'd say most of all the other writers, their first episodes were pretty good. So, like, I don't think that as a rule, a first-time writer is going to be bad, but it definitely does sort of provide an explanation when their first episode is bad, because it's like, oh, well, they don't really know much about this, how to write an MLP episode.
Like it definitely feels like tack is certainly lost in the way of like the recent episodes. It's a lot more let's be headstrong, let's be headbutting strong about like our morals and try to give it out like such.
And in the process, we're going to do a really bad job of conveying a good moral. not the best. I would honestly take some pony watch over me over this episode's moral.
What?
Oh yeah.
Okay, now that is a point in which I would disagree with their past.
Yeah. No, I mean, not a lot of people like that episode. I'm not surprised.
Seriously, it is debatably the worst AJ episode. Just
Again, worse than Applejack's Day Off.
Yeah.
I actually like Applejack's Day Off. It's like it didn't infuriate me. I didn't feel like anything was really off about it. It just was very boring in tone.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say that that's the worst HA episode, but that's not really relevant, I suppose.
I guess so. Yeah, let's get ourselves back over here on the Honest Brigade.
So I mean, I basically stated what I think. I really don't like how things turned out with the moral. I think it could have gone better if they went in a different direction near the end, but they didn't. And
Do you get
yeah.
dumb question? Do you think it was meant to be a rarity episode?
What?
You mean like having Rarity in place of Applejack?
No, like Rarity was supposed to be the main focus of the episode, but
Maybe, but from what I saw, I'd probably say no. I'd probably say uh, because AJ was the one in fault here. So, yeah.
Okay. Hey guys. Here's a question from Pristine. What if the supercritical AJ of Honest Apple were to show up in somebody to watch over me?
Huh. Um, can you clarify that, Pristine? What do you mean exactly?
I guess if she was as like, well, I guess they were equally hands-on or hooves-on or whatever terminology you want, but perhaps in terms of just being a real jerk about it as opposed to being overly protective.
Yeah, she'd probably be more grating if she was like this in that episode. Definitely, I'd say.
It's for me just imagine like someone were to criticize you for like, oh, you didn't like take care of the farm well enough. I'm gonna have to take care of all these duties now. You just sit here in a corner and let me take care of everything. You're not responsible enough to take care of the house by yourself. I was right to have doubts of you.
Yeah, that would get really grating really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I I guess I'm gonna have to agree with that. Pristine, just it might not be the worst AJ episode if we had that sort of character instead.
Well, I've got nothing else to say. So I mean, the ball's yours, Unova. But we also have Robert, I believe. That
Well, for like him, he's not gonna be able to come.
oh, gotcha. Well then,
he did not
you
prepare.
you are up then.
Alrighty then.
Actually, since he's not showing up, I say he agrees with me, so that's 1 point from my perspective.
Wait, you forgot that they did.
Watch him leave a comment later, like other perspective.
That'd be hilarious.
I just
Stranger
like
things have happened.
I mean, like for me, like it's gonna be a bit more like looking over like the episode, like Pinkie Pie felt like was very well utilized, and like in the small cameo roles she played in, wasn't like annoying or anything. Spike is
Temporarily shredding out the most excellent guitar solo I have seen in animation to this date.
Most
Well-
excellent.
well, I wouldn't
Kind
really.
of- Yeah, it was kind of bad a bit. Didn't make me laugh. Made me cringe.
I mean, like for me, I just didn't really care about it. Was a little entertained, but majorly just didn't care about it because it wasn't like a humorous like thing to me. Then we like, then we got Spike still crushing on Rarity 77 seasons in, which some people have brought up on how just like played out it was, and I could definitely sort of like agree to it, especially since Spike has sort of grown a network of friends outside of the main six. Like,
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like, I don't know, like maybe some of that would have gone subdue in the case for, I don't know, say certain same species type of things, I would think. But that's
Gotcha.
just me. But that's just me on that matter.
So, would you overall say that you are in the middle? Do you like it? You dislike it? Where do you stand?
I feel like this is an episode that would be rated as mediocre. Not infuriating, but just very depressing as a creative, but also like you just can't really like watch this episode to like get good feelings out of it. Like
Yeah.
it's like we watch My Little Pony. Some of us do it as an excuse for like escapism, but this episode was just like, hey, do you want to see how harsh reality is, but without the actual reasons why reality is harsh, but just overwhelming negativeness to like up and coming creative minds who didn't even deserve any of the treatment that they were given in this episode? Then watch this
Yeah.
episode for all that mean spiritedness you might enjoy.
Yeah.
Because it's like those creatives really didn't deserve any of it. They weren't even jerks like you would think like Cantaloupe Ponies would, even if they weren't Cantaloupe Ponies. Like they're just Ponyville civilians who wanted to be like fashion designers like Rarity once was.
Yep.
And it kind of continues on the trade of, I don't think My Little Pony should really have competitions.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
like,
not really the best medium. The way they go about it, they can't really teach very good competition lessons.
I mean, like in the first season, we definitely had better examples, like Fall with Her Friends, and then like,
Yeah.
but then like around like season 4, like Rainbow Falls was just the beginning of the end for competitions, and like even at the end of season 3, like judging was starting to degrade a lot. Like Rarity Takes Manhattan, just like anything involving like fashion competitions or like anything about like idolizations, like them like judging and not really giving you like really good information about like materials, like actually giving you an example of like how actual critique is, like even simplified to children. I don't think they even accomplished that.
No, they don't. And I think, this is one theory. This is maybe not accurate. It might be that they don't like criticism. Like, maybe that is the reason why they aren't very good at talking about it. I mean, Lord knows there have been messages they've given which could very easily be drawn, the parallels to the rest of the MLP community. Like, one thing that has been brought up is the "not perfect" line from Party Pooped, and how that could be a reflection of what the MLP staff thinks we do with them. How we, whenever something isn't perfect, we bash it. It could be a reflection of that. Honestly, I don't know. But whatever it is, they are not good at talking about criticism. They suck at it.
Well, when
Seriously.
the most popular critics of anything really are the ones who are so overtly negative to the point where those are the primary ones that get all the attention. If you're in the other side of that, on the entertainment business, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that everyone is like that, or at least that's what people want out of their critics. So,
yeah. However, okay, just seeing that like that's what critics are like, that's simplistic. And also, the only time in MLP analyzing, reviewing history that has been fairly negative was with Digibrony. And Digibrony and Tommy Oliver got like a ton of flack for what they did in season 4. So if that's their one,
They
if
only
that's
get
that would
got as
be
much flack as
that
they
would be
did
their
for 2
only
queens.
reference to a negative critic, and in
CR?
that,
Wow.
I mean, that's going really old school, but
Yeah, like really going old school. Like, and let's not forget about that whole Twilacorn debacle with the season 3 finale.
yeah, like I'm just saying that that's the only time that the criticism has ever been negative, and it hasn't necessarily been well received when it's negative. So I don't know what the MLP staff are using to come to their decision.
I will say it's not unique to MLP. Like depicting critics as the villains, even in stuff that like is not hated. Like I can say that like the film critic character from M. Night Shyamalan's Lady in the Water, that would still work against me because that movie was awful. But I can point out the classic play, eventually turned into movie, Arsenic and Old Lace. The main character in that is a theater critic who is resoundingly negative, and like his whole one of the running jokes with him is that he's already made up his mind that the play he's going to see eventually it will be given a terrible review. He's only going to see it to know what to give terrible reviews about. So, but it's a comedy, so I don't think a lot of people take that too seriously. But it is everywhere. It's not just in this show.
You're right, and it's an entertainer bias. Entertainers generally don't like. If you're an entertainer, you could easily bias things against a critic. Not unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember a certain time when a certain person by the name of Hichi decided to say that all, if you were making a critical question about someone's work, but you didn't have any content of your own, then you were a troll. So, I mean, I've definitely come face to face with this anti-critic bias.
I think
Fun.
I think for now, I think we should be heading off for our closing sentences on this matter for this podcast.
Yeah, I think we have kind of hit the end of the road.
Yeah. So, to go on, let's begin with you, Pixel.
I enjoyed this episode because I run the artist directory and understand what type of work it takes to work with the creative type and the less than creative types who are critical of it. So that's why I enjoyed the episode more than anything.
All right, then Omni.
I know it's not the most popular opinion in the world, but thank you for having me on. I know I didn't contribute as much as I probably should have.
Well, that's okay. At least we got your own perspective on the matter. That's something we at least accomplish here.
Yeah, I'll try and be a bit more around if anyone needs to talk to me. Or because I know you probably want to talk a bit more about perspectives if you're up for it.
Alrighty then. So, Omni, it's your turn.
Well, as I said, I straddle the line between entertainer and reviewer. So I see both sides of it. I don't necessarily think the episode was the greatest one, and I do think the intended in that. I do think the intended moral got slightly lost, but ultimately I do get what it was going for, even if it didn't necessarily get it say it correctly,
And lastly, pass.
Okay, well, for me, honestly, I'd say that this episode, again, it could have gone in a very good direction based on how it ended, but it didn't end in a good way. And I would say that I don't think that, like, yeah, me being I think that my perspective of the episode is influenced by the fact that I'm a critic. But I don't think that, like, I wouldn't say that people that like the episode are more creative or that people that dislike the episode are less creative. I would say that it's an entertainer versus creative, an entertainer versus critic paradigm, and the critic can be just as creative, if not more creative, and sometimes than the entertainer. Entertainer isn't always right or always creative. I think that's kind of a bit of a bit of an assumption that's easy to make, because the entertainer, they're the one that is actually creating the content, so it's easy to think that they're the ones that are the most creative. But the critics can also, like, have a lot of comments that, if were actually followed, would lead to further creativity. So that's just something I want to put out there.
Mm,
Yeah, frequently that does happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah. This episode is just. It's just something that feels like a blemish that can be commonly seen from like some of the later seasons. Like for
But
like
hey,
a
if every pork chop were perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs.
Yep.
oh, that is true. We definitely have these blemishes here to like make a good cheap food essentially for the masses essentially if they want to consume it really. But
Honestly, from your perspective, if I might point this out, if
mhm.
if if this episode were any amount of hot dogs, we would be able to feed a volunteer fire department. But I see it kind of differently,
Mhm.
and that's fine.
Yeah. So,
Well,
were you gonna say more? Or?
I believe I believe that is all we have here today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad for all of us who we had an active chat in the live chat, and for everyone else who's been here for the Cafe Cast. We hope to see you again for another showing for episode 10 of season 7. So this is Unova, Pass, Omni, and Pixel signing off, and we leave the curtain.
Later.
Peace.
Live long and prosper.
Ciao.